webinar before. We do these pretty much every month with an effort to educate you on various aspects of working with Mastermind. We thought we'd start off the year today with a back to basics approach that essentially gives you some where really we're going to be just going through the step-by-step of creating new reports from scratch and sharing them and managing the reports and so on. So we want to give you, if you're getting your first look at Mastermind or just sort of a refresher after a while of not working with Goldmine, or sorry, of not working with Mastermind, that's really the audience that we're aiming for here. That said, if you've got questions along the way about what we're doing, please go ahead and post them under the questions dialog, and Carnegie will interrupt me in places where it seems appropriate, or we will handle questions at the end as well, because I know that we're talking to people who have all different levels of familiarity with Mastermind, and so I'm going to let Carnegie sort of triage that and pass things to us as appropriate. If it's a question also that you just think, even if you think it doesn't meet exactly with the theme here, ask it anyway. If it relates to Mastermind, we can contact you afterwards one-on-one as well, and just help you with whatever it is that you're thinking about. All right, so here's quickly our agenda for today. Excuse me. The key part of it is going to be what we're calling basic training here, Mastermind 101 in the middle, but I will quickly remind you of what's available as far as training and support options. Of course, this hour is not going to make you a complete Mastermind expert. It's meant to really kind of get you a sort of a finger's tip touch of what's there. I'll also just mention briefly about how maintenance works and what you get with that, and then we'll go right into the basic training, or our back to basics session. And at the end, I already mentioned about questions and answers. So training and support. Just so you know, you are not alone with Mastermind. Unfortunately, in a lot of organizations that we've worked with in the past, the people who originally worked with Mastermind may have gone away, gotten different jobs, or you may only have one person in the whole organization who's familiar with Mastermind. And that makes your usage of both of Goldmine and Mastermind a little bit precarious. It helps to have multiple people using it, but it also helps for you to know that support is available directly online through GoToMeeting. You can buy support packs from us. Excuse me. We actually will have toward the end of this presentation, I'll put up a slide here, and we'll have a little bit of a discount offer as well on the support. So keep your eye open for that. But essentially, think of your usage of Mastermind and Goldmine as being somewhat fluid as far as who can manage these things, who can put together reports, but also who can manipulate your data. It doesn't necessarily have to be only this, your one technician in-house. We can help you through GoToMeeting and get things done with you while you at the same time learn more about how to make use of Mastermind in the long run. We also do live training online, one-on-one, working with your Goldmine database. It doesn't have to be all theoretical the way we're doing it today on a demo database. So you can really learn things in context. I also want to mention we do have training videos linked to our website. They're easy to find on the right-hand side of our front page, of our homepage rather, at mastermind.net. And all of the sessions that we've done, all of these end-user sessions, most of our webinars, many other videos that have just been created around specific topics are available in a very large library there from our website. Okay, next a quick word about maintenance. What you get with your Mastermind maintenance, because we sometimes get the question, well, doesn't maintenance mean that I can just call you up anytime and have you write reports for me? Not exactly. Our maintenance and support covers the software itself. Actually, that says V8 coming out. It's actually V9 that'll be coming out soon. Just as an example, so version 9 of Mastermind should be out pretty soon, and you'll be able to, if you're current on Mastermind maintenance, you will get that for no additional cost. It'll require you to download the software and install it, and actually even if you've got version 8 right now, when it becomes available, you'll just see a message come up on your screen that's saying that version 9 is available. Do you want to download it? And you'll be able to work from there. But you will need a new version 9 license number from us. Tech support, you also get under maintenance. Tech support is, is the software actually working or not? It's not how to do report writing, as I said before, or data maintenance. It's really just tech support as far as making sure that the software is working the way it's supposed to. If you are not current on your Mastermind maintenance, you can reinstate maintenance. If you've let it lapse, it costs you more. It's designed to be your best deal is to stay continuously on maintenance. So it's a little bit worse deal than if you had stayed on maintenance all along. But you can do it, and just contact us if you'd like to, if you're using Mastermind but would like to get back on the bandwagon. Okay, so that said, let's jump right to our basic training, and I think I'm getting to it here in record time, the actual topic. I'm gonna go through some first, launching and modifying existing reports, which is what most share users of Mastermind typically do. When I say share users, these are people who have the kind of licenses where reports can be shared to them, but they're not allowed to create their own new original reports. So in most organizations, you have a handful of creators, and then you have a larger number of users who are what we call share users, and launching and modifying existing reports is primarily what you do. In other words, you're working in the Excel environment most of the time, and not so much in the Mastermind Create Dialog. The second section here, we'll talk about managing reports, which is really about the workbooks themselves. How do you share them with different people, make them available, clone them, copy them, find the things that you need. And then lastly, I will go through the actual Create Dialog for creating new reports from scratch. It's going to be somewhat cursory. I apologize in advance, but we've only got an hour to do this, and we're already 10 minutes into it. So let's get right down to it, and we'll get started. So I'm going to switch over to our Goldmine here, and as most of you, I'm sure, know, when you're using Mastermind, you've got reports that are deployed to you for your usage you are reusing the same report. It's not the same thing. Well, it's sort of analogous to the idea of, quote, running a report in Crystal reports, or in traditional reporting, where a technician designs a screen for you, and then you run that report in the sense that you kind of run your current data through the shell that the report writer created, and then you have your report, and then you're kind of and then that report is the thing that you use. In Mastermind, of course, a workbook is what gets shared and saved and reused, and the workbook includes shells in a similar sort of way, except that the Mastermind pivot tables are refreshable with Goldmine data. So they're already laid out, they are formatted, they're arranged in certain ways that are useful for you, and when you open it up, the actual act of opening it up typically, unless you change settings on it, actually refreshes the data from Goldmine. And where you find those reports are going to be in a couple of typical places. You may have a short menu like this in Goldmine, where each of these is a direct line to a specific report that applies to you. Your sales manager should have several sales management reports that he or she just pops open when he needs them, so that they can, and just sort of continues on the work from there. Of course, Mastermind reports are different from Crystal reports in that you interact with them, and you can clone them and make quite a few additional steps into the actual data than you would do with a more standard kind of flat static report. But the concept here anyway is the same. These are reports that you can pop open and use. It's best to organize them this way, and how they got here is really from inside of the existing report itself. In other words, the person who created the report has a button in Excel, which we will get to here in a moment under Managing Reports, where they can share. They can hit the Share Report button, choose which Goldmine user whose taskbar it's going to be put on, and then which Goldmine task group it's going to belong under, and then voila, the next time that person logs into Goldmine, there's that report ready to go for them, and all they have to do is click a button and it pops open. So that essentially is the way that you close the loop between the creator of reports and the actual end user. So, and I'm in a moment here, I'm going to open some of these up, but I do want to point out that for a lot of you, you don't actually have these additional menus yet. Nobody has put them in there for you. They haven't shared reports to you, but you do have the Launch Mastermind dialog. This is the dialog a dialog that remembers the locations of all reports that you have worked with in the past, and because it remembers that, you essentially, even if somebody doesn't deploy reports to you, you do have access to all the places where you have accessed Mastermind reports before, and it's easy for you to sort of traverse those and organize them. And I'm going to get into this launch dialog here in a bit to talk about organizing these into folders and making them easy for you and others to find what you need. But to start with, what I want to do is go straight to opening up an existing report and talking about the features within there. So hopefully I haven't lost you too much. I just wanted to make sure that I covered all the ways that you might launch reports that that already exist. One other thing that people often don't know, there is a recently used button in here that shows in reverse order. So the topmost one is your most recently open, or the report that you worked with most recently. So if you're really kind of pressed for time and you don't remember what was the name of that report that I was working with last time or whatever, you can either sort them by the date down within the Windows dialog here, just get your most current one this way, and it would likely be that at least this is of course the most recent one within that folder. This up here is the most recent one that you worked with no matter what folder you saved it in. Okay, so I'll go ahead and open one up, and actually I meant to do, let's do the sales forecast. So rather than pull one off from up here, it looks exactly the same whether I pull it from the recently used or from launch it directly from the top there. So here's a pre-existing report. Now this is a very simple version. This is the sales forecast report. This is essentially, it looks exactly the kind of raw sales forecast report as it is created from the Create Dialog, and I've recalled it here so that I can go ahead and, with this starting point, rearrange this into whatever useful report that I want to. And in the course of doing this, of course, I'll show you the features inside of Excel that make this easy to do. So we're going to talk about dragging and dropping in fields and what that does with the pivot table. We're going to talk about the tools that are built into the Mastermind toolbar to make all of this relatively easy. There's actually two toolbars. There's this one here, which is mostly about the process of arranging fields and cleaning up and preparing to deliver your report to your own taskbar or someone else's taskbar in Goldmine. And then there's a little bit more in-depth tools here called tools, where you can do somewhat more technical things with the data or with the fields in order to set up various functions within Mastermind. Since I've just pointed out these two toolbars, I'll point out also the drill down toolbar. So it appears, of course, when you drill down on some data. So I'll just double click on one of my data elements here so we can see the data that's underneath that one element. And when you do that, when you're on a drill down page, there's the third Mastermind Excel toolbar that mostly handles interactions back with Goldmine, as well including the famous updater capability of updating right back into Goldmine itself, and then finally just formatting the actual drill down page. Okay, so those are the areas that we're going to cover inside of Excel here. There's obviously a lot of functionality there. We're not going to go through it all. By the way, one important thing to know is you do have a user manual. Sometimes I get asked this, and it always surprises me a little bit. There is a user manual, except accessible from both the Mastermind launch dialog as well as from inside of Excel here. All you have to do is go to Mastermind and click there, and it's a nice PDF document. We are actually working on getting a little bit more current with the latest releases of the software, but the vast majority of what you want to know about is already in there and covered. So first of all, let's talk about the actions with a pivot table, and then we'll kind of pull features from up here as we need them. So as I said, this is a forecast report as it looks just by default when you run the Mastermind Create Dialog. So this is what you get with your fields. Now you probably are used to seeing more fields up in here. That's because, and you don't see them here, and that's because previous to this, the Hide Unused Filters button has been hit up here in the Mastermind toolbar. What it does is it looks for all fields up here that are set to all and just moves those fields over to the right-hand side into the pivot table field list. They're not gone forever. They can always be pulled back. So for example, we could take the contact type field, drag it back up here, and start using it. But what this button does essentially is just make it convenient for you, especially in these reports that deal with activities in Goldmine that tend to have a lot of fields in the top left. It clears them out of there so that you really have the full real estate of Excel to work with. And that action that I just demonstrated here, dragging a field, left-clicking on it, and dragging it up here to the page area. Why do I want to do that? Well, I might want to filter on contact type. And so when you drag a field up here, one of the things you can do is the drop-down for it and say, well, let's just look at the forecast sales for people who are, let's say, existing customers, or maybe choose multiple items within there since we've got customer in there several different ways, and we might also want to know, well, what's the forecast for people who are prospects and suspects, but leave out the employees, the past clients, and the vendors. That right there is simple filtering. Now, that's filtering where what you're filtering on is actually not exactly visible to you. In other words, you can't tell from this forecast which of those sales are to existing customers, which are to past customers, or to prospects, and so on. And if you did want to break it up that way, you could certainly do it. Now, by the way, let me just make a comment here about what we're looking at in the report here. This is a forecast sale report with where the forecast is actually way in the past. That's just because we're looking at demo data that's a little bit, a few months out of date here. So the forecast is really running, from mid last year onward. Excuse me. In many of your cases, you might very well have forecast data that looks like this. In other words, you've got trailing forecasts that were supposed to be completed, either lost or won, months back, and you probably should be cleaning those out of your database. We should probably do something with those here in our demo database as well. But if you run a report like this and this is what you get, first thing you'll want to know is, what do we have, who is that? What are these two sales? And this is two because it's counting the number of records, the number of pending sale records that are in there. I've got two pending sale records from December 2013, totaling 4 units, totaling that much in potential dollar amount and probability and so on. If I want to know who those are, the logical thing to do is double-click. I can double-click anywhere in the data area, and it will show me the detail that's behind that number. So here are the two forecast sales, Brenda Bartholomew and Heather Hamilton. And really the logical thing to do is go back to Goldmine and identify, was this a sale that actually happened, or is it should this sales rep really be going back and revisiting this to find out whether they've got still a possibility of selling something to them? So the next logical step, and now if I'm the sales manager, I'll want to drill down this to learn more about it. If I'm the sales rep whose record this is, then really I should go back to it and I should do something, it's kind of basic management of a pipeline to not have forecast sales that are forecast to happen sometime back in the past. So what do I do about that? I can use my Mastermind drill down toolbar to pop that record in Goldmine. So I'll pop that sale record, I'll click Edit Activity here on the Mastermind drill down bar, pop that record up. This is exactly the same one. You see that it's scheduled to happen way back in December of 2013. And if I'm the user whose this is under, in this case there is no user at all on this one, so this was probably a something that's got kind of lost either. I mean, typically you can't create a forecast sale with no user on it, so something's happened along the way to either to corrupt the data or something got lost someplace. So maybe what we need to do is assign this to somebody. Well, Lori S. is the sales rep at the contact level, so we should probably change the user to Lori at least. So Lori can manage this. Maybe this is, we go and talk with Lori and she says, oh yeah, they're still possible. It's just, I don't expect it to happen before July of this year, of 2016. Okay, well, let's go and put this forecast into July of 2016. Let's go up to 2016 there, and set it maybe for the last working day of the month, and then say to Lori, okay, Lori, I've made that change for you. Now you really need to manage this and put a realistic probability on it, and so on. So I made the change in Goldmine. Go back to Excel. Now, when I go back to Excel, I'm on the same sheet that I drilled down to that record for. So I want to go back to the pivot table itself, and then to sort of close the loop to make sure that I'm looking at current data here, go back up to the Mastermind toolbar, refresh all, and by refreshing, that sale has moved out of December 2013, and it's now down here among these other ones in July 2016. So a number of different functions there that I hope you caught them along the way. If you've got any questions, of course, post them in the question dialog. So that's some interaction with the data itself, or with the data itself. Let's look at this from a formatting point of view. How do I arrange this report into something that's useful for me? Now, one thing to bear in mind, again, I'm not going to show you every possible report that you might want to be able to do. I'm really just here to show you a few techniques for working with the pivot tables and the tools that are associated with them. One obvious thing you might do, let's take this from the perspective of a sales manager who needs a sales forecast report. So the likely thing the sales manager is going to want to know is, okay, if this is our overall forecast. First off, I see that we've got a lot of old data that needs to get cleaned up. So let's assume that's going to get cleaned up, and I will talk with my individual sales reps. I'll let them know whose records are these that are hanging out in the past. And by the way, if we really don't know, or if you want to see that just sort of an overview of what those are, we could do something like this. We could take user ID, and instead of dragging the user ID up to the top and filtering on it, I dragged it right into the report, and I put it after year so that I could year by year look and say, okay, these ones that are back in year 2013, there's one of those, and it's under user Rob, so Rob ought to get that one fixed in. These four are all under Jane, and so she needs to work on those. So I've just got a good idea of what it is what follow-up is necessary and who to talk to and make sure it gets done. Now, in the long run, I probably do want something like a column by column breakdown, column by column meaning sales rep by sales rep, breakdown of our forecast. Because this right here gives us a detailed forecast that tells me how many individual sales and units and potential amount and so on. That's useful, but here I'm going to put this back how I started, and instead I'm going to clone. So I'm going to leave this as this is my sort of overview, my forecast overview for the team. But I will clone this so that I can do a sales rep, let's call this by sales rep report. And so all I did was hit the clone button on the Mastermind toolbar. It's the same thing really as copying the tab that you're on. But then what you do on this new tab, rename it obviously so that it's meaningful as far as what it is that you're setting up here. And I'm going to make this so that I've got, let's say, for the year 2015, since that's where my data is, and again, it's just a little bit older stuff. So for the year 2015, let's pretend that that's the current year. I'll move it up to the top so I can select the year. Now, I always recommend if you're going to select a single item, have it up at the top and use it as a filter. That's sort of like a header in a report. It does double duty. It makes it so that you can control it from there, but it also, forms a header so that when you print this report, you'll see this is 2015 data. In this case, month by month. Now, the other thing that I want to do with this is kind of simplify it and say, okay, I don't want to see columns here of different information. I really am interested in the, let's say the potential amount, the total sales potential. The difference, by the way, between probable amount and potential amount is this is each sale multiplied by its probability and added together, where this is the raw full amount of the sale. You can do either, you can focus down on either one of these, and they're both useful ways of understanding what you've got out there. So to start with, I'm actually going to take out some of these fields that are in the columns here. Now, important distinction: these fields are in the data area of our report, not the column area of the report. Very important distinction. So the column area, when you have a field in the column area, each column that you see is just another one of the items within that column value. So if I, for example, pull in, well, I'm going to do this eventually, but I'll just illustrate this for the moment. If I put the user ID field in the column area, as I've just done, then we will see whatever's in the data area duplicated for each of the different users within user ID. So here's Bill with all 6 of those columns, Jane with all 6 of those columns, and then all the other users will be there. It's not a very practical view of this data, is the point, because I've got 6 items in the data area that are all relating to each other, but they are not all parallel. In other words, they're not all just items within a single field. They're actually different concepts of information from the database. So I'm going to go ahead and put that user ID back, and I'm really going to just reduce this report down to where potential amount is the only field in my data area. And I want to do it because I've just got limited dimensions and limited mental capacity for understanding what I'm looking at. So I'm going to remove these ones that I don't want. So I'm right-clicking on them individually and removing them from the data area. There are several different ways to accomplish this. You could also do it by dragging the fields out on the right-hand side. If your GoToWebinar dialog isn't covering this up, you can drag fields. Why don't I just illustrate that here too? Probable units, drag it out of there, accomplishes the same thing, as you can see on the pivot table itself as I do this. Okay, so we've got this down to one item in the data area, one dimension in the row areas, and that item or that field being on month. And then to kind of complete the process, put your users in columns going across. So now I've got month by month forecast by sales rep. Now it's very easy. I've done a lot of talking here. You could have done this report from the Create, from scratch within about 2 minutes. Actually much less than 2 minutes. You probably could have done it in 30 seconds if you wanted to. So it's not as complicated as what I'm making it out by explaining everything. Sort of like explaining to somebody all the mechanics of walking. You're used to walking. It's pretty fast and easy. You don't have to think about putting your 1 foot ahead of the other. Now, one thing that you may wonder from here is, well, we've got a grand total on the bottom, but maybe we want grand totals by month as well. That is a design setting actually in the pivot table itself. Something else I really want to point out here. If you do not have a cell selected on the pivot table, you will not have the pivot table menu available to you. If that's missing, just click anywhere, one time, anywhere on the pivot table. A number of things light up. The field list comes up, the pivot table toolbars come up at the top, and there's a lot of functionality up here. There's 2 toolbars that are built into Excel. The options one, when you can take advantage of those for making a chart out of this or whatever you want to do. The design one, this is also built into Excel. In this case, I'm going to use it to add grand totals for both rows and columns. So just kind of to answer that question before about adding grand totals by month. So you can choose grand totals going in whichever direction or combination of directions you want, as well as managing subtotals and so on within here. You can also choose fancy designs, by the way, if you want this to look a little bit more professional in your ultimate presentation. You have lots to choose from on the Design tab. Those 2 are all built into Goldmine, into Excel, and then you have, of course, the additional tools that Mastermind provides. I'm going to go into a few of these here in a moment, but I just want to sort of get us to this point here. So now that we've made another variation on our forecast report, this one being by sales reps, so now we've got 2 different views, and of course that's 2 out of the infinite number of variations that you could potentially want to build, and each variation can just be another tab in the same workbook that you whenever you choose to hit the save button, they will all be available to you the next time you run it. Adding different variations on the same report adds practically nothing to the overhead of the report itself, because the data is really only held in Excel one time. There's one cache of data, and all these different pages will just show you different views of the same data. So don't be shy about cloning or copying the sheet and trying new things with it. And if it doesn't work out, fine, delete that sheet, but leave the workbook, and always save at the end so that you can come back to where you left off. As long as we're here, by the way, maybe I'll go ahead and do a graph here, because that's we're oftentimes asked. How do you make a graph out of a pivot table? It's really quite easy. As I mentioned, that's one of the built-in functions inside of Excel. Again, you need to have a cell selected on the pivot table, or you will not have access to it. So have a cell on the pivot table selected. Go to Pivot Chart. Choose the type of chart that you want. There are many different charts. Of course, this is Excel, so there's just a lot of graphical stuff built in here. I like this one that comes up by default. I'll say OK. And so here's the chart version, and it's really quite instantaneous. This is the chart version of that table. Now, of course, you can do various manipulations here. It's important also to recognize that this chart and this table are interactive. So if you make changes over here, if you say, I don't want to see Bill or Lori or Rob in this one, okay, go in here and turn off Bill, Lori, and Rob. And that has immediate effect not only on the table, of course, has immediate effect on the chart itself. And so you can format this chart various ways. You can right-click on the buttons and essentially hide all the field buttons that are on the chart, so you really only see nothing but chart there, and then use your buttons over here to manipulate what you see. That's my preferred way of working with it typically. And then within the pivot chart, I'm not going to go into this because this is all built into Excel itself. You can use all these toolbars under pivot chart tools to do things like, choose a really fancy looking format for your chart, for example. Okay. So I think I will leave off of charting for now. Let's go, and I'm going to clone this one more time. Clone the sheet, and on this cloned sheet, I'm going to get rid of the chart because we've got the nice chart up back on the other one. And now I'm just going to do a little more detailed version of this same report. In other words, now I say a different version. Some people would say, oh, well, these are two completely different reports because you're seeing completely different fields, which is kind of true, but they're really just the same data organized differently. And I think that it's really useful to think of it this way, that this is what the pivot table does, is allow you to take the same information but organize it differently to give you different answers. And what I'm thinking I will do here is I'm going to take the fourth quarter sales here, the October, November, December sales, but I'm not going to differentiate by month. I'm just going to make that fourth quarter. So in order to do that, I'm going to pull my quarter field in here so I can choose the fourth quarter. And I'm going to do a detailed line listing report of who is in these, what are these sales, and who's going to make them. So I'm taking out the month itself, but I'm going to leave the user who's going to make the sale there. But I'm also going to drag in the other details. So who are we selling to? The company, the contact, here's the user, our Goldmine user, who we think is going to sell it. What industry are they in? Essentially any of the information that I'm not going to bother with that one. Any of the information that you would want to have in your sales reports, including what's the next date you're going to call them, what are the notes from the sale record. I didn't happen to include the notes from the sale record. Okay, there's an opportunity for instruction. Here's the product that we think they're going to buy. This is just the product line from the sale record itself. That might be your report, or you may want to have more detailed notes. This button, by the way, that I just hit without even thinking about it, is the Optimized Columns button. It's a great button because what it does is it sets each of these columns all by themselves to just wide enough to display the information the longest information that's contained in that column. So if you find yourself all the time adjusting the widths of your columns in your Mastermind reports, it's because you don't know about this Optimize Columns button that really kind of takes care of that all at once. That's Optimize Columns on the Mastermind toolbar. So I mentioned about the possibility of having the notes be included in here. Now, not only am I illustrating that you can include notes in your Mastermind reports, I'm also illustrating how you can add a field that was not contained in the report when you originally created it back on the Goldmine side. Very important way of working with this. So I'm going to go to the Advanced Mastermind Tools button bar here, and you'll see over here in the left-hand grouping, it actually tells us, by the way, this is the last time this report was refreshed, the date and time. So if this is not today's date, you might make sure that you're refreshing. Well, then you definitely will not have refreshed it recently, so you just know that you're not looking at current data. That's important to know. But I'm going to go and add a field that we did not have already included in here. That brings up this dialog, which allows me to pull fields from any table that's already represented in the report. I can't, looking at a forecast sale report, I can't go and pull data from, history, which isn't forecast, it's completed, right? I can't pull it from some other table, but if the table's already represented in the report, which in this case it is, and I know that I want to get the information from the CAL table, which is the table that contains pending activities. Just to be clear, the C1 and C2, those are your contact level fields, and CA, that's the table that actually contains the sale records. If there's any doubt, you can go over here and look under the field name that you want to include, and you will see, no, it's not contained under the word notes, it actually is CA notes. That's because we differentiate in our labeling between notes that are pulled from the calendar table or notes from the front, the notes tab in Goldmine, or any of the other places that Goldmine stores notes. So that's the field that we're going to include, and we'll go ahead and add that to our query. Now I do have a few other things that I can do here. I can change this to actually label that field differently when it comes in to Mastermind. I could also, if I know my transact SQL, I could go in here and actually make changes to the expression, the field expression itself, to do things like, pull only part of that field. A lot of you might have fields that contain multiple pieces of information where all you really want is the first two characters of that field, or whatever it is. This is where you can actually change the expression that pulls that information so that your field in the report isn't exactly the same as the field that's in the original data. It's a portion of it, or it's something calculated from it. The other thing that I am going to do, though, is I'm going to choose where in my query, where in order of the fields that are in my query do I want the notes to show up. That's important for when I drill down. I'll get to that, to drilling down here with this in a moment. Let's go ahead and put our notes. I'm inclined to put them up here. Let's do it right after the activity code. And we'll say OK. And that field now, CA notes, appears at the top left of the screen. We're not using it as a filter right now. That's just the default place where it drops it. And you can decide how you want to use it. Sometimes when you add a field, you actually want to use it to filter, or you may want to use it to display things. So the CA notes field, you can't see lines in between these anymore because I use the formatting on this, but each of these, of course, is in its own cell. So I'm going to take the CA notes and I'm going to put them to the right of product in my report. I'm going to hit my Optimize Columns button again. The reason I want to do that is so that you'll see when there are excuse me, when there are long notes, they will wrap. Let's see if we've got any long notes in here. I guess I don't have any long notes to display here for you. This one has a carriage return in it in any case. But you can see what's happened is I've added the notes field to the report. Maybe I'll just shorten my products thing so it cuts one of them off, but it's not too big a deal. And this way, as a sales manager, this is a whole different view of your forecast. It's alphabetical in this moment by company, this is for all users, but maybe, it's for 3 selected users, but maybe you want to choose it for a particular user, what's their forecast look like, or for a particular time frame. In this case, it's 2015 fourth quarter, because those are the settings up here. So you've got really, you really can control exactly what it is that you're looking at in the moment. And one of the things to recognize as you're deciding, how do I leave this when I'm done with it? I'll call this my forecast detail report. If this is a sales manager's report, expect the sales manager to do a little bit of manipulation with it, to be able to say, okay, I just want to see this for particular products, or I just want to see this for particular users. Teach them at least to make selections in the drop-downs here. They don't need to know how to add fields in or to drag them one place or another in the report, but they really ought to at least be able to filter. They ought to be able to come in here and say, I'll pick which users I see in this report. I'll just do this one for, Bill, or for one other person. Now, this is not actually the most efficient way of doing this, because if you're going to have a field like this, as I mentioned before, where you only are choosing one value for it, put it up at the top and just let that be a header, and teach the person instead to make their choice up here in the drop-down. Okay, here's Lori's forecast, here's Jane's forecast, and so on. Our columns are a little bit messed up again because I took a field out, so let's fix that with the Optimize Columns button. And so, you can very easily get from one person to the next in a sensible way. All right, so we have reached the point where I want to move on to managing reports. So that's just real, basics on using the tools inside of Excel here to manipulate and organize the report, get it set up in all the possible different ways in which you might want to do a line listing like this, a summary like this, a graph like this, however you might want to go with it. So once you've made the report that you want, how do you share it and manage that, over time? The primary way that you share reports is using the Share Report button in the Mastermind toolbar. So what this does is, let's say you're the report designer, and you are not the sales manager, but you've created this. This is obviously the sales forecast report. This is a report for executives. It's for sales managers. It's even for individual sales reps if you've got the kind of situation where you don't mind having sales reps see what each other have forecasted. Sometimes it's a pretty good motivator. And you want to make it now available to more than just yourself. So if you've created the report, and you may have created it and saved it by default, on your own local machine, there are a couple things that are going to need to happen. One is you're going to need to add it to the Goldmine Task Bar, which is what the top part of this is about. So whose task bar do we want to put it on? Is it your own task bar, if you're the Goldmine administrator and you've just created reports for yourself? Is it somebody else? You want to actually put it on the sales manager's task bar instead? You can essentially choose them from the list of Goldmine users. Then the question will be, which taskbar do you want to put it on? Paul has 3 different taskbars under his name. He's got a customer support taskbar, a Mastermind one, and a click track, so you can choose them, or you can actually add a new taskbar. So what's a taskbar? Just quickly back here in Goldmine, these are taskbars. Well, the long thing is the taskbar, but each one of these individually is actually called a taskbar. So we're choosing what location is that going to go to in his menus there. I'll go ahead and I'll put it under customer support here. I can name this report. By default, it's the same name as the workbook that I have open. It's probably a good idea in general to leave the two being the same, so it's easy to manage them. But if you don't want to, you don't need to. This can be, you can put a password on here so that only Paul will be able to, Paul plus you will be able to open it, or you can put a password on the modify end of it so that Paul won't be able to modify it, but he will be able to open it without using a password. That often is the case especially where you want to just sort of prescribe a report to somebody, give it to them, but know that they can't save over it with any changes that they do. So you can use those passwords, intelligently that way. And the rest of the settings here are pretty much usually just kind of the standard ones that most people have it. You want it to auto refresh while it's opening. Typically you want the user to be able to drill through back to Goldmine to pop records, but you can turn that off if you choose not to. And you want to have the report saved without data. That's partly a security matter. It's useful. It's partly about security as well as sort of efficiency. Excel workbooks that actually contain, let's say, hundreds of thousands of records are larger, just take up more space on your disk than ones that are merely a definition of how to lay this out and how to get the data to fill it in. So in general, that's how Mastermind reports are saved. It's just an Excel workbook, even though it looks like it contains all that data, it's really just there, ready to grab the data and bring it in when it's brought up. Okay, so then your final choice is going to be, do I save this? So I want to save this in a location where Paul can get to it. If I created the report and saved it by default on my own workstation, Paul's not going to be able to get to it. I'm going to need to save it to a network location that Paul can reach to. So I probably hit resave and link. In fact, it's even asking me, the Excel workbook is located on your hard drive, so Paul may not have access to it here. Do I want to save to this location or a different location? I will say no, let's save it to a new location. So then I would be able to navigate to some other place where I'm going to put it out there on the G drive or someplace else. And I'm not actually going to do that right now, but I think you're all probably familiar with Windows dialogues pretty well. So we're essentially resaving this report to a different location, hitting the save button, and when I say yes, I'm actually overwriting the earlier version of it that I had. So it's done. It's now put on Paul's taskbar. So when Paul logs into Goldmine, he will have a sales forecast for dashboard report right there where he can just click on it. It will open for him, refresh with his Goldmine data, and so forth. It's just asking me,
do I question.
Deploy to another user. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. If saved without data, do other users need to open it from Mastermind?
Either way, they have to open it from Mastermind. So your Mastermind reports, when they are saved, are not available to people who don't have a Mastermind license. It will save it, and it will be sort of locked up. Typically, if you try to open a Mastermind report without using Mastermind, what you will get is kind of an empty Excel shell that says no Mastermind in it. If it's assuming that it's a Mastermind workbook that you're trying to open. So that would not be useful for somebody. They need to have at least a Mastermind share license to open it. Was that the only question, Carnegie?
That's the only one.
Okay. All right. So I did want to talk about, I promised I would come back here to the launch and talk about this a little bit, and then we'll come back to the Create Dialog. And we're not, unfortunately, we're not going to have a whole lot of time for the Create end of it. As I said, there's a lot to do inside of Mastermind. I just wanted to really cover this stuff fairly briefly. This is that share dialog, or that launch dialog again. And I just wanted to point out, people are not often aware that if you right-click in this area or this area, you do get some choices. So, for example, on Mastermind Reports folder, if you've previously saved reports or opened reports in this location on your machine, if you right-click on it, well, first off, when the dialog comes up, it will tell you these are the reports that are in that folder. Change to another folder, it'll read that folder and tell you what reports are there. That's probably no big surprise. But there are short menus with these. So, for example, if I right-click here and show subfolders of the Mastermind Reports folder, okay, there are no subfolders. Let's see if I've got some over here. There we go. So there are some subfolders of that one. Now, they didn't show up here initially because I, as a user, the user that I'm currently logged into Goldmine as, had never actually opened either reports or Mastermind files from Excel or from Mastermind before in those locations. So it just it wasn't able to remember those locations. Once I've opened one of them from there, it will from then on always show that subfolder within the main one. So if I'm ever navigating around Windows and just looking for a report that someone saved for me but I have never had open before, you can do things like, right-click to show the subfolders of whatever folder you're looking at, and that just kind of helps you to explore around Excel. Now, the other way to do that, if you aren't already, pretty certain that what you're looking for is in a subfolder of one that you're looking at, of a directory that you're looking at, you can always do the regular Windows open dialog that simply allows you to navigate around inside of Windows and find it wherever it is. And this is just your regular Windows navigation here. Let me cancel out of that one. Did I cover? I think I've covered pretty much everything I wanted to under launching. So let's take the remaining time and just go through the Create Dialog. Now the Create Dialog is its own very large subject, but I just want to kind of point at the parts of this that are important, and then we'll come back and do our summary and talk about the support pack, the special support pack offer and such. So this is the Create Dialog, so the dialog for creating a new report from scratch. Again, if you're a share licensed user, you do not have access to this dialog, so you just won't see it. But if you are a regular full named user licensee or site licensee of Mastermind, you would be able to create reports from scratch. And the dialog is fairly simple. The sections of Goldmine that contain information that you may want to report on are all represented here. There should be almost nothing that you actually use in Goldmine and see that you can't bring into reports, either through the main dialog here, where you're designing them new from scratch, or within the templates. There are about 150 templates now in here that cover everything from Goldmine administration to sales management to marketing management, and everything that you can imagine. Basically, anything that you do in Goldmine. If you don't find it easy to find the template that you need, they're just in here alphabetically, but you can put in keywords to search for a template that you need. So if you know that you want history reports that look at last time something happened, you could put the word last in there, L-A-S-T, and search, and it will narrow it down to only reports that have the word last in the title or in the description of what it's about. So I'm going to actually go ahead and, I'll show you the steps that I would have gone through to create the forecast sale report that I started out with here. So to do a forecast sale report, it should be fairly intuitive, as long as you know that forecast sales in Goldmine are on the pending tab when you're in Goldmine. So a forecast is under pending, and of course when you complete it, it goes over into history. So if you wanted to look at a complete record of history, you would need both pending and history, which Mastermind does allow you to do. But if you're going to be doing forecast, looking at forecast, you really just need pending. So just to kind of illustrate, if you did pending and history together in a report, it's just a matter of checking on the other box. There's not very much to it. The names of the tables get a little more complicated because you're pulling from many different tables then, but it's essentially the same. It's the same concept as what I was doing before. So to do that forecast sale report, I hit pending. I choose which type of activity within pending I want to be analyzing here. Obviously, it's sales. This is the full list of types of activity that Goldmine tracks. So I'm choosing sale. When I do that, I get a select set of fields that are already on, and then all the other fields that are actually in Goldmine, all these ones that are labeled CA are fields from the sales records. The ones that are labeled C1 are all the ones built in for Goldmine. The ones labeled C2 for the most part are your user-defined fields at the contact level, and they're all here. So it's just very easy to just check whatever fields you want to include in your report. And that's basically it. That's the Create dialog to create a forecast sale report. Again, there are templates that do more complex relationships, or where it's pre-set up to be laid out in a particularly useful form. But the basic thing is, if you want to know what records you have in Goldmine, what contacts, do reports based on contacts. If you want to know what has been happening with people, who's been making calls and how many, and to what kinds of contacts, and or what contacts do we have that have not had calls made to them, all of that is available to you here just by making the right selections at the top and choosing your fields, and then hitting the finish button. So hitting finish would get me back to that starting point where I was when I started creating that report. So I'll stop right there. Okay. So that is a quick whirlwind tour of creating Mastermind reports. Again, remember, support and additional training are available at all times from our website. I'm going to go back now to the, hopefully, back to the,
You can find it.
here we go, I'll find it. There we are. To the agenda here. So that's, we've covered that. I'm going to move on here. So our special today, you can get a 10% off of one of those support packs that I had listed on the screen there before. If you need to know what our pricing is on anything, it's always published right on our website. If you go to mastermind.net and just look under, I think the top header item is order now, and price list is the selection underneath it. And that will take you to a page where you can see what our support and training costs. But if you order by the end of this month, which is until January 30th, you must mention this special from this webinar. So if you weren't here, you didn't see. If you weren't here, you didn't see it. So it's not something we're generally offering to everybody. It's just to you who are on this meeting or who watch the recording. You can use this support for any purpose related to Mastermind. We can use it to clean up your Goldmine data using Updater. We can do reporting for you. We can help you analyze what it is that you've got going on in Goldmine. We're really, quite willing to explore and discuss anything about, how you're using Goldmine. These support units never expire. You can always use them. You'll typically use them in very small amounts, 1, 2, 3 quarter-hour units at a time, and so forth. Okay, so just in case there's any Q&A, any questions that we haven't asked yet, let me quickly ask that before we bring this one to a close. Carnegie, is there anything that we need to cover?
There's nothing out there, but I wanted to see if you'd pull up a Create Dialog again and show people how to alphabetize that field list that sometimes gets overwhelming.
Okay, so we're talking about, let's go to Launch and Create. Now in my case up there in my menu I added an extra Create so I can just go straight to it. You can too if anybody wants to know, send us an email and we'll tell you the syntax for that. So in the Create Dialog, what you're asking is, how do I alphabetize the fields here? So there's a series of buttons here that actually make working with this list a little bit easier. One is the first one here that I'll show you actually is you can see these fields. You can see we're still in the same place in the list. It's just that we're seeing the underlying field for each of these, database name of these fields, as opposed to the default, which is the user, the name that the user is familiar with. That's all just meant to make it easy for you to, to pull the information in. Now there's a couple of fields here like email address and email merge codes where that's not really a field in contact one, so it just kind of has a placeholder there. But for the most part, what you see here is the underlying database field name. Alphabetizing is what Carnegie's asking about, which is there. So when I hit that button, it alphabetizes these fields, so it's easy for you to find, and it alphabetizes using whatever your most current setting is. So if you're currently set to show the field names, as the way an end user sees the field names right on the screen, then that works. Or you can actually, if you actually know your Goldmine database field names better and you want to sort by those, you can do that. Change first to Goldmine and then sort. And then, of course, you just go through and check whatever fields you want to include. Okay.
Beautiful.
I think that's going to be all, and we have reached the end of our hour. Oh, we're okay.
Not yet. I got a question. Good one. Does Mastermind Updater, or MM Updater, work with the most current version of Excel?
Yes. When you say the most current version, I think you're talking about Excel 2016. And yeah, it works actually with any version of Excel. Mastermind generally and Updater in particular work with any version of Excel back to Excel 2007. I think I probably have some users who are on 2003, although my guess is that some of the functionality I know that some of the functionality is not available because 2003 doesn't have the toolbars in it. But yes, it does work with the latest version. If you're having any issues, of course, let us know. Let me
Is
do a
Updater
quick.
working for 64-bit Excel now? For those that might be wondering.
Excel does not work with 64-bit Excel. It still has to be the 32-bit version of Excel. Goldmine as well is not compatible with the 64-bit version of Word or Excel. So we're kind of keeping up with that. I do actually hope to have to be able to bypass that problem for 64-bit Excel. And by the way, I'm talking about Excel being 64-bit. Your Windows can be 64-bit. That's just fine. Your your Goldmine is whatever it is. So we're not talking about machines or environments that are 64-bit. We're only talking about where Excel itself is 64-bit, that there's an issue.
And just to clarify, the rest of Mastermind works fine for 64-bit.
Yes, right. Right. So if you're not licensed for Updater, then it's not an issue for you at all. If you are licensed for Updater, then you'll want to do that on a 32-bit machine. Or I'm sorry, on a machine that has 32-bit Excel. Okay, so let me just put up our final slide here again. Where are we? There we go. Oh, you know what? We have not done our selection for the consultation yet. So Carnegie, I think you're going to have to quickly. I don't know if you were planning on already, but so 1/2 hour free consultation. We always like to reward you for your patience if you wait all the way through the end user meeting. This consultation might be used for whatever purposes you want, building a report, drilling, fixing data, training you, explaining how to do things, answering any question again related to Goldmine. And essentially it's available to you and just the same as if you'd bought 2 quarter-hour units of support.
Okay.
So with that, Carnegie, and I hope that I haven't already shaken off too many people who were in attendance, but let's see what we get.
We did lose a couple people, but our winner today is, I'm going to really mess up this last name, Adam Nowalczyk.
Okay, well, you'll be able to find him, I would
Adam,
think.
I will call you afterwards. And sorry if I butchered your name.
Okay, and if it turns out that you're still listening and you are not actually in our, well, you must be in our database, right, because you signed up for it. So, okay, very good. Thank you all very much for joining us today. I hope that you found this session useful. If you did, or well, especially if you did not, let us know in the survey that follows this webinar. When you sign off, you do have a survey and have the ability to put in comments, and your comments are extremely important to us to help us to do these things better and make them more useful for you. So with that, thank you all very much for your time today. Hope you have a great 2016, and we'll look forward to seeing you next month.
Bye, everyone.